With that, I'll hand it over to Deepak.
Thank you, Rajeshwar. Okay, we had a wonderful panel discussion in the morning on API strategies. Let's see now what that means from the test automation perspective. API first is an emerging technology trend which treats API as its own product. What happens in product development? We first try to understand consumers' needs. Then we develop product design, and then we validate it from the consumer's perspective. Same thing happens with API first. We first try to understand consumers' need. Then we develop API definition, not the actual API, just the API definition. And then we test it if it meets consumer expectations or not. Now, what this means from testing perspective? This is a significant shift left in testing approach. With API first, the contract integration testing needs to start even before development team starts with the coding. That's a significant change and shift left in approach. So there are two challenges here which testing needs to address. Let's see which are those and how those are addressed. So first, I write my API definition using API definition tool, which automatically generates API definition JSON. After this, I write my consumer integration test specs and my mock API service. And when I run these test specs against the mock API service using the tools like PACT, it automatically generates interaction contract JSON, which has all the interactions between these two. After this, what I do is, using mock validator CLI, I validate this contract JSON against my API definition JSON. And if this fails, that means either my API definition has some flaws, or there is some flaw with the way that my consumer integration test specs are written. In any case, I rectify that and make sure they both are in sync with each other. It is only after this that I write my actual API service and my mock consumer, which directly utilizes this interaction contract JSON, which was used in consumer contract testing. And now, when I replay all these interactions against my actual service, and then if this passes, that means I am assured that my API is in sync with what my consumer is expecting, and so is my API definition. It is only after this that I write the actual consumer and do the full-fledged integration test. Moving on to the next topic, which is cloud testing. When we say cloud testing, we are here referring to testing cloud native resources. Now, there are three ways in which I can test my cloud native resources. The first one is resource group verification, where I can test how my resources are created and configured. I can do this immediately after my resources are created, or I can do it even before the resources are created using the infrastructure as a code template checker. So this was the first one. Second one, using Cloud Monitor, I can test how my resources are working after being created. And the third one is using Cloud Policy. I can check the compliance of my resources against standards. Now, these standards could be international standards, national standards, or custom standards laid down by my company. Now, let me give some examples. If I take an example of SQL Server, resource group verification will tell me if auditing has been enabled on my SQL Server or not, backup has been enabled or not, transparent data encryption has been enabled or not. Cloud Monitor will tell me how is my database transaction units consumption, or is there any excessive wait time for execution of my queries. Then if I take another example, let's say in case of app service, resource group verification will tell me whether HTTPS has been enabled or not, or monitoring will tell me if there are any failed requests or not. And if I take one more last example of virtual machine, in case of virtual machine, verification will tell me, let's say for example, if a remote connection has been restricted from the internet or not, or monitoring will tell me how is my CPU resource consumption, how is my memory consumption. And then moving to the last part, which is cloud policy. So here it will tell me how is the compliance of my resources against international standards like ISO 27001 or CIS, or national standards like US HIPAA or Australian government, Canadian federal, UK official, or any of the custom standards defined by my organization. Here, the best part is that all of this, which I just mentioned, can be completely automated and integrated into my DevOps pipeline as quality gates, so that I can assure that all these tests which are defined by me automatically pass before I release anything to the production. If I give an example of Azure, for IAC template checker and resource group verification, we have Azure Security Kit. For monitor, we have Azure Monitor, and for policy, we have Azure Policy. So this is how we can do the cloud testing of our cloud native resources. Thank you. Over to you, Rajesh.